Ladies and gentlemen, it is lightning round. There's no Britt Flynn. She is on her way to Kansas City for the draft, but got the boys here. You got me and Coop. You got John and Impemba from Fantasy Alarm. What's going on, guys?
How we doing? How we doing?
Good, man. Dude, we got Britt boots on the ground
All right.
at the draft. Let's go. Fantasy alarm on the ground, baby. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And you know what? We're going to dive literally right in with team needs because the draft, I don't know if you guys heard, it's on Thursday. It's at nighttime. We're going to be on Better Sports Network, of course, talking about everything you need to know from a fantasy point, from a betting point, and everything in between. So let's talk about Carolina Panthers, number one pick overall. We pretty much know what's going to happen. It's pretty much set in stone. Of course, the draft. Somebody can come in with a gas mask and totally throw the draft out of whack. But is it going to be anybody but Bryce Young for Carolina?
No, not in the first round. And
Vegas
honestly,
doesn't think so.
yeah, the thing is, the Panthers, knowing that they were going to trade for the first round pick, they lost DJ Moore, but they quietly went and filled a bunch of their team needs in, right? Like they went and got not just Adam Thielen, but also DJ Chark. So wide receivers looking pretty good. They went and got Miles Sanders, a running back, paid him a pretty big deal. So pretty locked up there. We got Hayden Hurst at tight end. So offensive wise, they filled a lot of spots. After quarterback, what do you think maybe their biggest needs are for the, obviously second, third, fourth rounds?
Well, I mean, if you're looking just sort of like you mentioned, they kind of got their offense set. Maybe they could use some help on offensive line, and then it's all kind of the defensive side of the football. They could probably afford to get a little younger at wide receiver. I mean, they adding Adam Thielen there. We talk about his age. They gave him a little bit of a bigger contract than we probably would have expected them to get there. And Chark has kind of been a floater, so they certainly could use an impact wide receiver, I would think, to go along with Bryce Young. But definitely some security in the trenches would be good for them too.
Yeah, and we know also when teams usually piggyback a quarterback, they'll piggyback with other offensive weapons too. So they could always use another running back. They could always use a wide receiver. I know they got Miles Sanders too, but and then they brought in Adam Thielen, they brought in DJ Chark, but you also need probably a wide receiver to kind of build with your quarterback too, because those guys aren't going to be there forever.
Yeah, it's interesting if they hit on a quarterback, man, because like the defense too, like you look around, pretty loaded up. Tons of first and second round picks, right? Like Derek Brown, first round pick, Brian Burns, first round pick. I think that JC Horn was the first round pick, right? They just went and got Von Bell from Cincinnati. I know everybody's they love Williams, the other safety there, but Von Bell actually led that defense in snaps last year, the Bengals. So pretty solid on defense. The only thing I'll add before we move into another team is this team could be one looking to get a linebacker. The good news for them is there's maybe one linebacker prospect that I've been seeing going in the first round. So they could easily fill that somewhere else with one of the better prospects from this class. So Panthers looking pretty good after the trade, man. Maybe Adam Thielen was onto something when he said, I'm going to Carolina because I think they have the best shot at winning.
Yeah. And the impetus on, selecting that quarterback is you better for the draft capital you had to spend to get to that point, you have to hit, because if you don't, you are setting your franchise back another cycle. They're going to probably be doing this in 25 or 26 again.
Sure.
So let's go over to Houston, who has the second pick. If only they could select a GM to replace Nick Caserio. But unfortunately, there are no GMs available to be drafted, so they've only got to draft players. We've seen a lot of jockeying for guys like Will Levis, of course, Will Anderson, a lot of defense, edge rushers, defensive end. Like, this is probably the biggest pivot point right now. Obviously, there's pivot points everywhere, but once Houston picks it too, it could set up a pretty big domino effect for the rest of the draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that Houston could do, not just at 2, but at other positions. So for 2, there's so many guys on the board. I personally, and I know we're going to talk about this extensively on draft night itself, but I don't see why Jalen Carter wouldn't be in the mix either. I keep hearing everyone say he's the best player in the draft, right? And then I hear people on, the other side, Brandon Huffman, guys like that, saying character issues aren't as big of a concern these days as they used to be. I wouldn't be surprised if even he went there. And then, for fantasy purposes, this is a team that could easily not just add a quarterback, but it's all in play. right? They could add a wide receiver. They could. They got Dalton Schultz, so maybe not a tight end, but it's only a 1-year deal, so maybe running back is on the table. Lot of
Yeah, we
things
we
the
got
Texans
word
could
today
do.
that Michi was looking good, ready to kind of
Yeah,
return this year. People, not to forget about him, but he was a guy that many expected maybe would come right in and contribute for them. Then he had to deal with the whole cancer issue. Seemingly, he's all set and kind of ready to go, and maybe he slots in, in here this season and is able to contribute right away and kind of solve some of those initial needs. But they still certainly need some help at the wide receiver position.
Oh, 100%. Like looking at their depth chart right now, it is Nico Collins and the Land of Misfit Toys with Robert Woods and Noah Brown, Amari Rogers, Metru, obviously we talked about too, but it is pretty barren there. And if you're, you've got a left tackle and Laramie Tunsil, but like you just really don't have much else. They need to do something. They need some kind of offensive playmaking ability there. So, I mean, the real you look at a team rebuilding. You want to get a quarterback and then get you get a wide receiver, and they're two picks. They could do that, but clearly they have needs of defense too. So
yeah, I've seen a mock draft recently. Jordan Addison going to them with one of their later first round picks, kind of filling out at wide receiver. So could see them go heavy there too.
What if they take CJ Stroud at 2 and then take Will Levis or Anthony Richardson at 12 and just double tap it and tell the world
QB.
And just tell the world this is the most important position. We're going to figure it out right now, right?
I mean,
I've got a plan. Yikes.
Yeah, for an organization that desperately needs a quarterback, it would be bold to say the least.
I think if I was going to do that, like obviously you probably don't do that, but if you're going to do it, it'd be interesting to take Stroud and then take like Anthony Richardson and then sell people on the idea that they're both good, but very different players. So if you want one, you can have them, like the old draft both, but maybe then you still have to trade one later. I know.
Well, you're going to have to hope they both show up well, right? Because if one looks good and one doesn't in the preseason, or, it's not really competitive, or they don't look good on the field, now you're stuck with two quarterbacks that you use the top 12 picks on, and you're not going to get that return in draft capital. So
I'm just saying, I've seen so many teams trade Matthew Stafford, he cost 2 first-round picks to get him. I mean, if you think
he's an established player,
right? But if you get 2 shots at it and you think you can really figure it out here, it might be worth it. So sure. I'm just saying, not crazy, not necessarily crazy, but also kind of crazy.
Yeah, a little crazy.
Yeah, a lot of crazy. But you know what? We're dreamers here. Let's dream big.
That's right.
Speaking of dreaming big, we're dreaming big in the desert here with Arizona. We know there's a lot of ways that they can go. They know, Kyler Murray is obviously going to be probably out for the first month or so, maybe even longer. We'll see how that goes. But there's still, that's a trade point too, especially for teams that are looking to maybe get, CJ Stroud isn't taking it to. Maybe the Colts move up a pick to take them or take him. A lot of defensive players, Will Anderson, if he's gone, Tyree Wilson. Where do the Cardinals go?
Yeah, consensus mock drafts that I've seen and looking right now, just quick Google search, Cards Wire, most recent mock draft, Christian Gonzalez, cornerback from Oregon, going to them. They obviously are potentially turning over their secondary. You had the trade request there from Baker as well, so could see them go on the defensive side of the football here and fill out some of their deficiencies they've had.
Yeah, and I think, anytime we kind of know they're doing a bit of a bridge year, right? And they just brought in a defensive coach in Jonathan Gannon. He's going to want to build a defense that looks like his defense, right? Like he's going to want to start building what he knows best and then figure out the rest moving forward. So, I could see them making a big move. And again, I mentioned the name Jalen Carter as an interior defensive rusher. Javon Hargrave was a huge part of that Eagles defense, rushing from the interior. He was the one that he basically won the 49ers game when he got to the quarterback and took him out. So everyone's on the table there. If quarterbacks go 1-2, I think Will Anderson's probably the pick we're seeing a lot of, right?
Yeah, Will Anderson and Christian Gonzalez are the two I'm seeing most mocked to them. And Joey Porter Jr. as well, another cornerback possibly seeing going mocked to them.
Again, if you're coming from a world where you just had Darius Slay on one side and James Bradbury on the other side, Christian Gonzalez would make you sleep better at night, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly at that premium position. We know the pretty much ruling the game right now. If you're looking to make a premium pick, it's tackles, it's corners, it's edge rushers. So like that's what you have to have in today's NFL. So a corner would make a lot of sense for the Cardinals. I did mention them briefly, but the next pick is the Indianapolis Colts, who while they have some upfront needs, they have some needs at cornerback as well. Like it's really hard to imagine not the Colts not taking a quarterback here.
I would agree with you, 100%.
Yeah, Jim Irsay. I mean, Jim Irsay himself tweeted out like he that tweet he sent with the pictures of all the quarterbacks, and he's like, "We might trade up, we might stay put, we might draft a quarterback later." I mean, like, I know you're not supposed to give your hand away, but he basically said we're drafting a quarterback. I mean, so it's just a matter of who. I could see Will Levis. He feels like a Jim Irsay guy, doesn't he? You know, just like brash.
The
He's going to
Athletics.
give him a Jimi Hendrix guitar.
Right, exactly.
The Athletics, James Boyd, his most recent mock draft released yesterday. Anthony Richardson going to the Colts is what he had there. So
that'd be cool as well. I mean, the RPO with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor running behind Quentin Nelson, nightmare, right? Like absolute nightmare. As for other positions, they need, like a lot of teams, they need a cornerback. They need a tackle. There was some talk about Ryan Kelly potentially even getting released or traded. That he was on the trade block at center. Not sure how long he's going to be around there. So maybe they look at interior offensive line. I mean, the reality is you could mock guys like Peter Skoronski that are tackles that can play guard to just about any team in the entire league. Like, is there any team that couldn't use an extra good offensive lineman that can play anywhere? I don't.
Not the way they get hurt these days, right? And you've seen teams who the domino effect. If you lose one lineman, you have to move another guy into that spot, and then it just kind of weakens it down the line. Getting offensive line depth is just crucial. It seems like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving to the Seattle Seahawks, with the pick that they got from the Denver Broncos last season. Certainly need help up front on the defensive side. If Tyree Wilson doesn't go where Coop wants him to go up at 2, this seems like a ready-made spot to go at 5.
I had Jalen Carter there, but even Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter, mix and match, they could fit right into this Seahawks defense.
Yeah, Seahawks.com has Jalen Carter mocked to them at their pick. So that could definitely seems like a good spot. Bring back that defense, that the Seahawks had during their championship years,
Yeah, so my basic understanding of this, like there's around the league, the different coaches and different systems, sometimes people have like a special player that fits within their system that they have like a name for. Like the most famous one would probably be the Joker back in Sean Payton's offense, right? We've all heard him say like the Joker back, and he always has one, whether it's Reggie Bush or Alvin Kamara, right? Apparently with Pete Carroll's defense, he has this special position on defense called the Elephant, right? Which is it's a 3-4 base defense, and it's just this. What it is a defensive end that can just control the game from one side, and they just put him on that side and run everything through him. Yeah. And either one of these guys would fit that role perfectly because it's a 3-4. So these guys could play defensive end in a 3-4, because it is technically still an interior position. So I think it makes all the sense in the world for him to take one of those guys, and they don't even have to move. They just wait for one of them to be there, right? Like Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson.
Right.
Like they don't have to go anywhere. One of them, like I would be shocked if at least one of them isn't there.
For sure. And then moving to the Detroit Lions at 6, they could do a number of things. We know Jared Goff, that could be a quarterback spot as well. Certainly on the defensive side, we know they have some deficiencies there, but Dan Campbell's building something here. So I'm very intrigued at what Detroit is going to do here. But what are you guys' thoughts on
the Jeff Okudah trade? Was surprising to me. I did not see that one coming. I know it wasn't a Campbell pick, but he was, a top, was he 3rd overall, 4th overall, right? And it felt like he had a good season. It was either last year or the year before that. And then, so to see him move for as cheaply as they did, I felt that was kind of surprising. They lost Slay. They thought Okudah would be a replacement for that. Cornerback secondary still feels like a spot that they need to address now.
Yeah. So with the Okudah thing, it seemed like it was an attitude situation because we saw John. Remember last year with Zay Jones, like
Mhm.
Okuda just erased him in that game. Like there were
Right.
certain matchups where Okuda was just taking guys out of games, but towards the end of the season, the last 2 games, he actually got pulled from the second last game, and then he was after getting benched in that game, he hurt his elbow, so he
Right.
couldn't play in the last game.
Yeah, against Green Bay.
I'm not quite sure how hurt. It might have more been his feelings were hurt. It seemed like to me. So
Odd like mentality to have on a team that was clearly on the rise, right? Like, wouldn't you want to
Yeah.
be a part of the solution in Detroit and not part of the problem?
Dude, so we see that, and sometimes these guys could get moved. Remember Elijah Moore? He was complaining. They were on a 3-game win streak, and
Yeah.
he was complaining about targets. It's like, dude, shut your mouth. Like
Right.
you can wait until you lose 1 game, and then you say, right? You lose 1 game, which obviously you're going to at some point, and then you say, well, I can help us win, so I need the ball, right? You don't complain when you're winning 3 games in a row. So, yeah, I feel that, man. It's a matter of. It's an attitude thing. And with this pick and the Lions have 2 picks here in the first round, like there's a handful of positions where you can't be disappointed. Like if they take quarterback, I would say sure, because the Alex Smith was a back-to-back Pro Bowler for the Chiefs, and they traded up and took Patrick Mahomes. That worked out really well. Carson Wentz just got signed to a big contract. Jalen Hurts worked out well there, right? So like, I mean, the Rams traded away Jared Goff, and then they won the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't be disappointed with that. But again, cornerback, an obvious position now. Defensive tackle. If you could put Aiden Hutchinson's great. If you could put one more guy down there, and now you can't just double team Hutch,
right?
Could be very disruptive. So I think the Lions are a team that I think are staying and making a pick, because there's just too. When you do start doing the math on Christian Gonzalez and these tackles and the quarterbacks, you add it all up, there's not more than 6, right? So I would just stay put, take best player available. Easy. Game's easy sometimes.
Yep, for sure. And then moving to the Las Vegas Raiders, we know if Al Davis were still alive, the pick would pretty much be cemented as Anthony Richardson, I feel like. I feel like that is like the perfect Al Davis pick. But maybe Mark Davis feels the same way. And, we know quarterback is a need for the Raiders too. They have Jimmy Garoppolo, but he might not be a very long at quarterback for the Raiders. But just like it seems like every other team needs, they need cornerbacks, they need defensive tackles. So could this be a spot, certainly take a Witherspoon or a Gonzalez there at corner?
For the Falcons,
yeah, I think so. Right now, if you're looking at Vegas odds, they're at plus 115 from the take a cornerback with their first pick. So, that's the heavy favorite there. If you're looking at the mock drafts, NBC Sports, Pro Football Focus, they got Will Levis going 7 to the Raiders. So, I guess it all depends on how confident you feel in the mock drafts versus Vegas, but those seem to be the 2 popular plays. Witherspoon, Levis, kind of go in that direction there.
Yeah, I like that. The other thing that I could see that not for this round, but for later rounds of need, because they need cornerback, they need quarterback, they definitely need offensive line. I could see them taking an offensive lineman here. In later rounds, I just want to add that, like tight end, they traded away Darren Waller, and then Foster Moreau, unfortunately diagnosed with cancer. Austin Hooper and OJ Howard, probably not the long-term solution there. So this is a team where I could see them taking a stab second, third round on a tight end. So just another position to need while we're talking about him here.
Yeah. Paris Johnson Jr. has the best odds to land 7 right now, plus 300. So
yeah, he's probably the most well-rounded tackle. It's basically like you have Paris Johnson Jr. that meets all the length requirements and played well. Then you have Peter Skoronski, who he probably was the best on field, but they say his arms are a little short. He's might end up being a guard. Like he's an Elijah Vera Tucker type. And then there's Broderick Jones, who is awesome. But he's a high ceiling, low floor type guy, but he could be the next Trent Williams. So those are your options at tackle, really, at the first 3 guys. But I think if I was a GM, I would just take Paris Johnson. Seems as safe as possible.
All right.
For sure. Now we get to the most realistic landing spot for Bijan Robinson, which is Atlanta at 8. Not sure the realistic probability of that, but if Atlanta wants to, last year they ran the ball into the Stone Age. If they want to run the ball into the Paleozoic era, they'll take Bijan Robinson.
Plus 150 right now in DraftKings Sportsbook for the landing spot for Bijan Robinson is the Atlanta Falcons. So they attacked defense in their offseason. They traded for Akuda. They brought in a bunch of guys there, Bud Dupree and whatnot, to fill out the defensive side of the football. I know a lot of people are looking at the running game that they had last season and think, well, they made it work with who they have, but Arthur Smith loves his elite running backs, and it feels like there's a reason I feel like the betting market is trending so heavily the way it is. During the beginning of this offseason, the Falcons, Bijan Robinson to the Falcons was at plus 1,300. Now it's all the way down to plus 150. So something is being said somewhere that the money's moving in this direction.
Yeah, I mean, I've been more and more sold on this being the spot for him. If it's the greatest thing for fantasy football, I don't know. It's definitely not good for Tyler Algier. He would be pretty much dust immediately. But he was also a day 3 pick, so it's like not.
I think that's why he's movable. I think
right.
Great.
Yeah. You can't cry too hard over it.
Right. We all thought that James Robinson wasn't replaceable, and then they took Travis Etienne. So these guys that don't have the draft capital, the money investment, they got to get a potential generational running back. And Arthur Smith had Derrick Henry. He kind of understands what that can do, and he wants to run the football for better or worse.
Right. And with the over-under set at 12.5 for Bijan Robinson, right? You have to remember that in any given draft, there are going to be 32 first-round picks. This year, only 31 because the Dolphins don't have one. But that doesn't mean there are 32 first-round grade caliber players. Right. I've been hearing, I'm not sure what you guys have been hearing. I've been hearing as low as 15 as a number here. So, and Bijan is definitely one of them, right? So I feel pretty comfortable betting under on the 12.5. Betting for him to definitively go to the Falcons, I feel pretty good about that too, honestly. But
it's them or the Eagles, probably right after he answered that question. What quarterback would you rather play for? And he said Jalen Hurts, and they're picking 10. Who's to say that the Eagles don't pop up to 7 or something like that and go ahead?
That's what I'm saying. And if the over under is 12.5, no, I have no problem with it.
Still cash it, yeah.
Cashing. You're cashing. So maybe if you're the betting folks out there, bet the 12.5 and then sprinkle a little on the Falcons. That's the way I'd roll.
I like it. And then the Bears moved down from their perch at number 1 down to number 9. Obviously got a bunch of picks when Carolina traded up. Certainly a lot of needs for the Bears still, especially on both ends of the ball up front, edge rusher. So to either surround Justin Fields with some bookend tackle or guard, or just fortify up front. Bears certainly need it, on both ends of the ball.
Got to go offensive line, in my opinion. Got to protect your future. Got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to figure out if Justin Fields is going to be the guy. We think he is, but the way to do that is to remove all the excuses. They're loaded up on weapons. Now load up the offensive line, and then you can sit back and say, we put everything in place. He's our guy or he's not our guy. But the longer you let the excuses go for and be a team that's like 32nd in pass protection. I mean, this team was also 32nd in getting sacks on the other side, so they could use edge. But I'm with you, man. Why not take Paris Johnson? That he played with Justin Fields very briefly, but at Ohio State. Like if Paris Johnson's there, that's an auto smash pick, right?
Yeah, 100%. Listen, one of the reasons why I think Jalen Hurts was so successful last year is they had the best offensive line in football, right? Like he wasn't getting the ball and then immediately having to deal with all these rushes in his face where he didn't have the time to get these guys open in Smith and A.J. Brown, and his mobility obviously helped that as well. But you see Fields, he gets snapped and there's 2 guys in the backfield already and he's running circles around. It's like, oh, look at that highlight run by Fields. It's like, well, look at why he had to make that highlight run. He was spinning around and he didn't know opportunity. So build the line, give them time, let those wide receivers that you traded for and drafted and acquired, get open. And then if Fields can't hit them, well, then he's not the guy. But like you said, Coop, you gotta eliminate that excuse. You can find defense later in the draft. You can find defense in free agency. Build your offense.
Yeah, absolutely. They certainly need to, remove all doubt. We've seen all these teams build weaponry and offensive line. We've seen the Dolphins obviously do that with Tua. We've seen, everybody building around Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk about him next and the Philadelphia Eagles and what they need. But yeah, definitely supplying your franchise or potential franchise quarterback removes all doubt, certainly. Yep. And a lot of that doubt was removed with Jalen Hurts, getting to the Super Bowl. And now with their fleecing of the New Orleans Saints last year, they had the 10th pick. So they're also another spot for Bijan Robinson, also, edge rusher, cornerback. I could totally see them, even though they have Rashad Penny. We don't know if they can stay healthy. So for some reason, if the Falcons don't, or the Eagles want to trade up, that's probably the other spot that's realistic for him.
Yeah, for real life football, Bijan there, great. For fantasy football, I think it's a terrible landing spot. And a lot of people keep telling me that it's a great one because of the RPO and all that. And Miles Sanders had 5 yards per carry, but Jalen Hurts had the second most carries inside the 5-yard line of any player, behind only Jamal Williams. This team was dead last in RB target share as a team. That includes Kenneth Gainwell because they have a mobile quarterback. And if you look at Miles Sanders, when Carson Wentz was the quarterback, he was getting 60, 70 target pace. He got hurt a little bit, but 60, 70 target pace, including a season where he actually did get 60 targets with Carson Wentz. Then they bring in the mobile quarterback, he gets like 20 targets. So like Bijan, great for real life football. Really, really do not want him to go to the Eagles for fantasy football.
Yeah, this is a team where mock drafts, they actually, they have him taking, I've seen Witherspoon as a consensus if he falls down here, cornerback with that 10. But Jahmyr Gibbs has been a popular pick for them at 30 when they go down the line as well. So, don't take Bijan at 10. Take a guy that is as fast as there is really out there, and a guy that can catch the football and give you that versatility in that offense. And we talked about it before. They don't really care much about the size of running backs in Philadelphia. They'll just take anybody.
Now, I will say this with this team. I think if you're the coach and GM, you just went to the Super Bowl. I think this is a team with the early picks. They have to draft for need. And I know they say you don't want to do that, but you convinced Lane Johnson to come back. You convinced Jason Kelsey to come back. You convinced Brandon Graham to come back. Fletcher Cox. Darius Slay and James Bradbury were kind of talking about being gone, right? Like you convinced these guys to come back. You don't go out and draft a project or a future, you know what I mean? Like this is the team that needs to draft players that help them win right now. Otherwise, it's pretty disrespectful to a guy like Jason Kelsey, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to, maybe you lower the ceiling a little bit just to get a guy that can play now, that can win for you now. Like this window, it's a veteran team, even though they have a lot of young parts, but the nucleus of that team is, they might not be around in even a year or two. So you have to do that now.
Right. Running back, a cornerback that can play nickel immediately, right? Like somebody that you need immediate, somebody that's going to do something immediately. Maybe even a guy that can immediately rotate in on the defensive line. I know they like to rotate a lot over there. So, but just something immediate for this team. Like you're not taking a tight end to play behind Dallas Goedert for the long term. Like that's a nightmare pick. Right.
Yeah. You're not taking Jordan Love there with your
no Jordan Loves on this team. Exactly. You got guys right now. Win now.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So at 11, the Tennessee Titans, who probably need anybody that can play on the offensive side of the ball more than any, like the defense with Vrabel behind them, they are a greater whole than the sum of their parts. Like he will make that work. I don't think you have to worry about that though. If you add reinforcements, great. I just think you need a wide receiver. You need upfront help. I mean, they've got Andre Dillard. They've got Daniel Brunskill that they brought in free agency. You have a first-round pick or a second-round pick from 2 years ago, Dylan Radins. They just need any help on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, this is the first team to me that is like the first pick of these where it's just a complete wild card to me. Where like if they take anybody, I'll just be like, all right, you know what I mean? Like running back, like quarterback, running back, tackle, like wide receiver for sure. I mean, they have Traylon Burks and then who? Yeah. So like this is the one I keep looking at it and I'm just like in my own mock draft, I'm just like, I don't know. They could trade up, they could trade back. I don't know, John. What are you feeling? Doesn't it feel like
Titans Wire has them taking Jackson Smith and Jigba there? So at 11, so that certainly could go there. It seems like their consensus pick is going to be offensive line. Both Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski are listed there, kind of tied. So if you want to go sexy, you take the wide receiver. If you want to go where games are won in the trenches, they don't have Luan there anymore, like to take the offensive tackle and rebuild the O-line.
Yeah, it could literally anything. Quarterback, I mean, hopefully not tight end because I love Chigakonkwo, but I mean, like pretty much anything else, dude. Like,
Yeah, Richardson would be interesting there because again they drafted Malik Willis, but they didn't really spend the draft capital where he's not replaceable last season, and Tannehill seemingly has run his course there. So
yeah, pretty big indictment on Malik Willis that he got benched for a guy off the street.
yeah, and that guy played better than him.
Yeah, and Dobbs played pretty well.
He looked pretty good, yeah. But I wonder what he's going to end up.
Just being able to throw the football was like, oh, right. This is what it looks like to throw a football in the NFL. Right.
Right. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go for scientist, so.
Let's go from a guy who came off the street to throw a football to a guy that we don't even know if he can throw the football because he has 83 career pass attempts. The Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love. The Jordan Love era now begins with the 13th pick. And is it going to be on offense? Is it going to be it's funny that Green Bay got the pick swap, and could they draft a wide receiver if Smith and Jigba is not there? Is Michael Mayer certainly in the talks? Skoronski certainly need a tackle there with Bakhtiari. We don't know if he's going to play or not, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, Alex Barth from 98.5, Coop and I had a chance to talk to him. He just released his mock draft. He's got Mayer going to Green Bay. So, if you're a believer in these mock drafts, I know it's always an inexact science, but you think Barth is kind of a sharp dude there, Coop, right? So
yeah, I like him.
He's got Mayer going to Green Bay.
Yeah, I like Barth. Him and Evan Lazar do a great job. The thing with Mayer to Green Bay, the Green Bay to me right now is the premier tight end landing spot for fantasy football because they have an opening in the slot, right? Kev, like Robert Tonyan, like he, for all intents and purposes, played a good amount in the actual slot, and Alan Lazard would play a lot of big slot. Alan Lazard, like the year before last, him and Mike Gesicki basically played the same amount of tight end snaps. Like Lazard, they would get him in there and have him get dirty too. So a guy like Dalton Kincaid, that's who I would prefer personally for fantasy football because he could just play in the slot, and then you have Watson on one side, Doubs on the other, and then Kincaid. But Michael Mayer is probably the better overall NFL prospect if you want to have an inline tight end. Mm-hmm. So I have no problem. Whoever they take, they're going to build the offense around that person. And Mayer would be great landing spot for him for fantasy as well, if that's the guy you like. But I just personally want to see them take like Dalton Kincaid or Sam Laporte or somebody and just like have the guy be wide receiver. That's fantasy wishing on my part. From a real life standpoint, Michael Mayer makes all the sense in the world, right? Anybody else that you'd like to see, Kev? That's the Packers guy.
You're the Packers fan, right, Kev? So what's your wish list?
Flash that Packers hat. Let's go.
I mean, my wish list, I pretty much Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like I think Love needs somebody that can play inside, outside, probably more inside with Smith and Jigba, but I would love him. Skoronski is very attractive too, just because we know Green Bay loves to shuffle their offensive linemen. They have everybody that with versatility on the inside, but really on the outside, they don't want to take Elton Jenkins away. From the inside where he's probably a better natural fit there at guard. But with just so much volatility with David Bakhtiari's injuries, it makes sense to at least have a guy there that you can plug in that, can just stay at left tackle if he doesn't play. So Skoronski would probably be my second guy. And then, Mayer would be third. Then Green Bay has so much flexibility with their picks too, and how many they have that they can move down if they need to, or as we saw with Watson, can move back up last year. So, I mean, just somebody on the offensive side, but I would not be surprised if they went with a defensive lineman either, just because they have a big need certainly on the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing with Skoronski is that he can play, like you can put him at guard, and then if Bakhtiari gets hurt, then you can move him to tackle, right? Like he can play both. Whereas a guy like Broderick Jones, he's a tackle or he's on your bench, right? You're not going to move him to center. You're not going to move him to guard. Like that's why he's a riskier play. Like a guy like Skoronski, you're going to find a spot for him, right? Yeah. Like he can play one of those four spots. Whether it's the only question is whether he doesn't have like the long enough arms, right? They say you need to play tackle, you need a little bit longer arms. That's the only thing with that guy, but he's about as safe of a pick as there is.
Right. Absolutely. Let's go back. Let's go down to the New England Patriots. Coop, your boys. Quite a few needs here, especially wide receiver. They are pretty outside of Tyquan Thornton, pretty unathletic at the position. So getting some kind of body there, I think, would be uh, pretty nice. And certainly cornerback too, linebackers. Not as deep in this draft, but certainly a need for them. So, what do you think, Coop?
Yeah, everything's on the table here. Cornerback for sure. Offensive tackle. People keep saying wide receiver, and they met with Zay Flowers twice. I don't know if I love it. John, me and John both Patriots fans. John, would you want Zay Flowers especially at 14?
Getting balls from Bailey Zappi.
Yeah, it feels early for a guy. I always worry a little bit when these guys start shooting up draft boards, right? Because they worked out well. Boston College was one of the worst offenses in all of college football. He was the only productive player in that offense. Like nobody else had more than like 30 catches. So like sure, stat padded himself because he was the only guy that they would throw the football to. Does that mean he's a good player? Sure, he worked out well. He added some weight, put on some muscle,
20 pounds.
Good.
He looks yoked.
Yeah, I don't care about that stuff. So no, I would not want to use that pick on that. If Jackson Smith and Jigba was there, sure. Maybe they find a way and move up and make a move there. A lot of mock drafts. You mentioned Evan Lazard. He released his yesterday for Patriots.com. Edge rusher Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech is who he has Patriots going, addressing sort of the defensive side of the football there for New England. And he actually has Jonathan Mingo going in the second round. So he gets their wide receiver in round 2. He gets Tyree Wilson in round 1.
Yeah, those guys love Mingo. I like Mingo too. He's a big boy. And John, you actually earlier today you had Mingo in your flag plant guys. Yeah. So that would be a nice one. And the second round though, not in the first round. In the first round, Tyree Wilson. Wouldn't that be nice, John? Pick a player that we've heard of, right?
Right. Pick a player we've heard of that we think can be productive and give us some edge rushing.
Yeah, that went to like a real school.
And get after a quarterback. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Especially you look at the division now. You need guys that can get after the quarterback, right? With Allen and Tua and now Aaron Rodgers, like some pass rush will do them well.
So the guys I want any of the 3 tackles I named. Broderick Jones, absolutely. They said that he can get out in front like Trent Williams and actually like be like a pulling tackle. Like he's very athletic. That's his upside, right? So I would like Broderick Jones, Skoronski, any of those guys. I would like, like you talked about Tyree Wilson, a brand name lineman, right? Buff up that defense. I would also like cornerbacks. Christian Gonzalez, if he's there, automatic pick, right? But we think he's going to be gone. The other guy I like for this particular defense, and it also is a great narrative, would be Joey Porter Jr., right? Oh. Not only do you get a big guy, he's like 6'2", or at least over 6 feet, 200 pounds, maybe a little bit of go back to the Brandon Browner era, where you Brandon Browner, big guy on their big guy with a safety over the top, and then matchups on the other side. That would be nice. And not only that, but it would be great as a fan to see Joey Porter have to root for the Patriots. Right? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, just a little Steelers guy there. Barth has Deontay Banks, cornerback there for Maryland, going to New England. So he does in your quarterback spot there.
That would be cool. Deontay Banks would be cool too. But Joey Porter Jr., just because Joey Porter, for those that don't know, played for the Steelers, his father, and he famously said that the Steelers would have won more Super Bowls if the Patriots weren't cheating. Right. That's Joey Porter's take. So I want Joey Porter Jr. in a Patriots uniform, 7 a.m. running hills.
Deontay Banks 4.35 40. That is a burner at corner.
Screaming, right?
Absolutely. And now we'll go over to the New York Jets, who moved down to 15. And this, we're talking about the Eagles, how they probably need more guys that could play right away. This seems like kind of the same spot with now Aaron Rodgers under center for the New York Jets with young weapons, but certainly a team that now that they have Rodgers wants to be competing as soon as this year. So is this a spot too where, maybe they get an offensive lineman, someone to play right tackle on the other side of Becton?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a shame that Becton hasn't been at the highest level that he was supposed to be. I mean, even as a Patriots fan,
that's the problem. I think that's why the offensive line is the man has been he is as big of an offensive lineman as there is. If he stays healthy, you could run 4 guys behind him, but he's not on the field, right? So getting a guy that New York Post has Broderick Jones mocked to him. If they go ahead and get that offensive lineman just to add depth, I think that's a winner for them.
And that line would be great now because I love the guards. Elijah Vera Tucker and Lakin Tomlinson. I mean,
Yeah.
great players. Like this line would immediately be awesome. And Brees Hall would be flying around behind that line with Rodgers dumping it down to him, assuming he can come back healthy. Yeah, so I mean that'd be great. On the defensive side, you got Robert Saleh still putting the finishing touch because he did such a crazy good job converting this team from a 3-4 to a 4-3 within like 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were a completely different defense. Like 2 years, he turned this thing around. So anytime you could maybe throw one more guy up front, because when you build the 4-3, you have to not only get rid of those guys that only fit in that system, but bring in even more even more up front guys. So I could see them doing a defensive lineman there as well, but we'll see, man.
Yeah, Keanu Benton mocked to them as well for MSNY, so defensive lineman out of Wisconsin.
Yeah. I mean that they're kind of in a can't miss spot now.
Yeah, just moving down those two picks, certainly a lot available to them at 15. Going down to 16, the Washington Commanders, who we talked about Joey Porter. That could be another spot if the Patriots don't take him. We've talked about Skoronski. If one of those quarterbacks slip, that could be a spot for the Commanders as well, because I don't think they're super, even though they want to say they have Sam Howell as the starting quarterback, you can't be super, confident in him. If there's a quarterback out there that can certainly improve their prospects.
If Richardson's there, is Rivera gun shy to take a Cam Newton-esque prototype player?
I don't know. I mean, that's his guy, man. Richardson, that would be great. I mean, if Sam Howell is good, he'd be the first good 5th round quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like Fran
Right.
Tarkenton, right? I honestly think Fran Tarkenton might be the last good 5th round quarterback. So, and the guys, people are like, oh yeah, but he can run. Like he didn't run. He runs a 5 flat 40. Like he didn't run at UNC. He was basically a 2-yard touchdown bulldozer. So yeah, I think that QB there makes a lot of sense. This is another team where if 2 tight ends are going to go in if people are saying 3 tight ends maybe in the first round, if 3 tight ends go in the first round, that means that Washington took one. And with Logan Thomas at his age, after that, it's like John Bates, Cole Turner. Think about what Logan Thomas does. Yeah. Think about what Dalton Kincaid does. I mean, it's like just swap them out. It's the same, they do the same thing. So that would be a good landing spot for him, usage-wise and role-wise. So
less sexy. The Athletic has offensive tackle Darnell Wright going to them. So
Wright he's like everyone has him as the 4th offensive tackle, I feel, which means he's going to go within the top. Somebody's going to take him within the top 3 tackles. That's how it goes. Everyone has a consensus guy that's not one of the guys. That guy always gets picked, doesn't he? Right. So yeah, I can see him going here, but yeah, that would be pretty boring. But I mean, this is also a team where I kind of love what they've done at wide receiver, right? Like Todd Dodson, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel's a good player, De'Ami Brown to stretch the field. Like they're all set there. Running back, they look pretty good. So there's not a lot of sexy picks to send to these guys,
Right. Yeah, certainly. Quarterback would upgrade the entire unit.
That would be a sexy pick. That would be a sexy pick.
Yep. That'd be a big statement, especially, with Dan Snyder pretty much gone for all intents and purposes in the next year or two. But moving on to the Steelers, if there's a team that needs to tackle more than the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to name one, but that seems like the perfect. We're going to take whoever is at the top of our board, whether it's Darnell Wright or Skoronski or whoever. But we know they have needs on the defensive side too. But that just seems like hone in on tackle.
Yeah, if I was Najee Harris, I would be sitting outside Ron Rivera's door every morning, being like. Tackle, right? We're taking a lineman, right? Come on.
If I was the quarterback there too, Pickett, I'd be saying the same thing. Like, can I get some help so I can stand in the pocket and find Allen Robinson, who you just traded for, or Deontay Johnson, or George Pickens, or anybody? Can I get some help? Please, keep me upright.
Please. So yeah, I could see that. That's what I want. This is the other team where if we don't take Joey Porter Jr. and he slides, they
just do a legacy pick.
They need a corner too.
Pat Peterson and what else?
I saw him and Pat Peterson on a podcast together, and Joey Porter Jr. was like, "I want to play with you for the Steelers, where my dad played. I went to school. He went to high school down the street. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it makes almost too much sense. You know, there'd be like heartbreak if he wasn't good. So it's like you
Right.
almost don't want to do that. But I mean that pick makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And then moving on to Detroit, we talked about them at 18. At 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who certainly have some back end help, need some back end help at safety on both lines. Baker Mayfield at quarterback, that could be a quarterback spot as well if one of those guys, falls. They're kind of a wild card too with Tampa. What do you guys think?
Trade out spot, John.
Yeah,
Maybe?
probably acquire some. They still have some decent pieces there. They probably need to rebuild their defense a little bit. But they definitely have questions at quarterback. They went in, we're gonna have Kyle Trask be our guy, and then they signed Baker Mayfield, and it's like, well, Baker's not really the answer for them either. So, I think this is almost like another rebuild year where you get a core trenches player, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, and then be a bottom 5 team in the league this year and go get yourself a quarterback next year. I think, unless somebody falls, Richardson, Levis, if somebody falls into your lap here, then maybe you take a stab at that prospect. But I think that's probably how I would go about an approach this. Go play Baker Mayfield, 5 wins, Trask, 5 wins or whatever, be up top 10 pick next year, and then attack the quarterback position then.
Exactly. Like that's why I like it as a trade out spot, is that like if you're not going to get anybody that's going to change your fortune the way a quarterback might, then you just either take best available here, maybe a guy like Nolan Smith, right? Like everyone seems to like that guy, right? But nobody mocks him very high, so maybe he's available here, or just trade out and then then that puts you in a position to say you trade back, collect some capital, maybe pick at the end of the first or the early second, and then you could take the best guard or center in the entire draft, right? Because they could use either one, right? Eventually they're going to need another center. Jensen, he's good, kind of pretty banged up, getting up there a bit. So if you could just do that, get extra capital and move it forward, taking a guard isn't going to ruin your chance of getting a quarterback next year, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm feeling for this team.
Yeah. Moving to the Chargers at 21. To me, there is no better stylistic fit and would be perfect for what they need than for the Chargers to take Jordan Addison.
Yeah. Yep. Because I'm seeing people saying Quentin Johnston, and to me, I'm like, they already got a Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams, right? You already have the big crazy play guy that that's getting downfield. So I like the Jordan Addison pick there. I mean, even though I do have, and I like for me to say I like that pick, considering how much Josh Palmer I have in Dynasty, it's a good fit, right? Because otherwise I would just be protecting my boy at all costs.
It seems pretty consensus that they're going pass catcher. If you look at some of the mock draft consensus sites out there, Jordan Addison is the most selected. Zay Flowers is the second most mocked player to them. And Michael Mayer is the third most mocked player to the Chargers. So 3 pass catchers, got a replacement there for Gerald Everett at tight end, and Mayer if they go in that direction, or do they give you 2 more top wide receivers? You have Mike Williams and you have Keenan Allen there, obviously, but get yourself some protection for those 2 players possibly there, or at least another game breaker in that offense.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Gerald Everett, but he was just not a full-time player for that team. Played more than 70% of the snaps, maybe one time. And dude, he looked gassed. Remember the Chiefs game where he was just too tired and it was a pick 6 at like the goal line just because he was I don't know what it is, but I think that if Michael Mayer's there, it makes all the sense in the world. And the entire fantasy community would rejoice, right? So I feel good about that one, but I'm just not sure he's going to be there. But again, that's why so many people are mocking the tight ends. So many to go in the first round, because you can point at a number of teams where it's like, if he's there, he will go to this team, So a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
You're muted, Kev.
I am muted. He seems like Gerald Everett seemed like he was on the Jared Cook career path and then realized he wasn't Jared Cook at all, going to his second and third team. So Did not work out, but yeah, I could totally see them taking a tight end. That would be either him or Addison. I think would be perfect there. Moving on to Baltimore at 22, wide receiver would be certainly just continue the run there. Lamar Jackson, that whole thing's in kind of flux, so I don't see them really taking a quarterback there. But they can certainly use help on the line too. What do you guys think about Baltimore?
I mean, you bring in Todd. You're going to have Todd Monken come in and do the air raid. Then you need wide receivers, right? Like Odell Beckham Jr. is going to solve one of those spots, but it's a 3-4 wide receiver situation. So even if you have Mark Andrews in the slot and you have, and you have, why am I blanking? Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. They need another guy that's going to play like all the time. So to run that offense properly, they need another guy. So I think that this is a primo spot for a wide receiver. If they don't go wide receiver, what do you guys think?
Right. I mean, there's no security with their wide receiver group either. OBJ and Bateman both coming off of injuries. So I know we're not injury forecasters here, but definitely need some depth. Otherwise, you're throwing to who knows, right? After on this new offense. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess after that, maybe they don't really have any big difference makers anymore along the front on this team.
Mm-hmm.
So offensive linemen, again, another team that the right guys there, Nolan Smith, like there's certain guys that are just not going to get by these groups.
Yep.
Right. Moving to the Vikings now, we know they certainly have a need. They could probably use another wide receiver now. Maybe KJ Osborne maybe isn't the most perfect number 2 wide receiver there. Although that is probably TJ Hawkinson there. Certainly cornerback. I mean, they are just barren. Their Deontay Banks would certainly fill a big need there. But quarterback is interesting for Minnesota if they want to move on for Cousins eventually. What do you guys think?
Corner, man. Andrew Booth Jr. is a good player, but I would rather have him as a second corner. So if you can get Deontay Banks or whoever's left, if somebody is left, or maybe they trade up to get a guy that you can just plant your flag on. Because there's no safety really in this draft, even if you want to replace Harrison Smith. I know he's coming back, but and again, this is a win now team to me, right? Like they're playing to win. So I could do wide receiver, I could do corner.
I don't think they need offense. We saw them last year. Defense was their big problem. So they could score with anybody. They couldn't stop anybody. That's it.
It's just like, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, awesome. And then it's KJ Osborne, Jalen Naylor.
Mm-hmm.
Trade. They should trade. This team should trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I know they don't have any money.
Sure.
The cap is a myth.
In this economy?
I don't have any money, but maybe they'll figure it out.
It really is a myth. Speaking of not a myth, Jacksonville picking at 24. We saw them pick Travon Walker at number 1 last year, and look at that. They're down into the last quarter of the draft here at 24. So certainly things are looking pretty bright in Jacksonville. But still, they need defensive help. I mean, can certainly do that. Could take offensive tackle or an offensive lineman. What do you guys think Jacksonville needs here? Now that they're probably on the cusp of yearly contending mode.
I mean, so this is why what you point out the flip with Jacksonville. That's why I want the Lions to take quarterback now, because that's not their pick. That's way up there. That's the Rams pick. This team is good enough now that they're going to not be picking towards the top, but are they good enough to win? That's why I kind of like the Lions taking a quarterback, because like you look at what the Chiefs had to do to get Mahomes, they had to trade way up. The Jaguars now are not going to have high picks for a long time. So, got to be careful when you're a team that's kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I think you go defense here. I think the offense is coming together. They've, Gavin Ridley obviously only helps things, and they're secure there. So it's defensive side of football for me.
Yeah, no, they're good with pass catchers. I mean, if they think Ingram's definitely leaving, maybe later get a tight end. But I'm with you, John. I go defense because the offense looks great.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of offense, the Giants, who pretty much made it, into the playoffs with makeshift wide receivers after Wan'Dale Robinson, Kenny Galladay stunk out the joint, but certainly a team that could use some kind of help for the newly minted Daniel Jones.
I hate so many people are mocking Zay Flowers to this team. I hate that. They have like 10 Zay Flowers, John. Don't they not?
They have a guys that all profile in that slot, but they all keep on getting injured. Again, I know we don't like to talk about injuries here, but Sterling Shepard literally never stays healthy ever. Paris Campbell last year, first time ever. Like, yes, they need somebody. just to stay on the field for them, you know?
Yeah, we have a Zay Flowers at home. That's
Yeah, they have like 10 Zay Flowers. They really do though. It's like I know that they get injuries, but I mean, didn't they add Paris Campbell too? No, they added
Paris Campbell. Yeah.
They added Jamison Crowder as well.
Yeah.
They just have every slot guy that's ever
misfit slot receiver. Yeah.
But so no more of that. Like this is the team that should be getting Jonathan Mingo. They should be going for Quentin Johnston. Just do something different, right? Do something. Get one big guy. It's okay. Kenny Golladay can't hurt you anymore.
Yeah, Darren Waller on the outside.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, actually, yes. But just take a guard or a center, okay? They don't need to take a wide receiver in the first.
Does Jerry Jones use his executive power to draft some kind of running back?
I mean, Jerry gonna do what he does.
It's a spot for him. Everything says Mayer being mocked at the Dallas Cowboys, though.
That would be great, but we just mocked Mayer to 10 teams. That's the problem. You know, Darnell Washington, maybe that could be interesting. Dalton Kincaid, any of those 3 tight ends that are there would be nice. Jahmyr Gibbs, because if Bijan's gonna be gone, that's the best guy. And now you have two seems too similar to
Tony Pollard, yeah.
To Tony Pollard. I would love for these guys to wait and take like Dwayne McBride and later, and then you have one pass catching back and one Alfred Morris.
Sure.
For sure. And I'll lump these two teams together because I think their needs are, at least their top needs are pretty much the same, knowing that they have top weapons and not a lot else around them. Buffalo at 27, Kansas City at 31. Obviously Travis Kelce, obviously Stephon Diggs, but what else? I mean, this is a good spot for wide receivers if they want to take one in day one. But I mean, what are the realistic chances that either of those teams take a receiver?
Yeah, maybe the Bills. Maybe the Bills could though to move Gabe Davis back into like that next man up role. I could see the Bills doing that, but you're right. They're probably along the defense. We know these teams can go toe to toe on offense with the Chiefs, right? We've seen it. The Bills came within a coin flip. The Bengals actually beat the Chiefs more often than the Chiefs beat the Bengals. So if you could load up on defense, either of these teams, that'd be nice. I do not like the high end tight end pick for the Bengals. I just don't like. I don't like it for fantasy. I don't think it makes their team. I don't think it turns it doesn't move the needle enough for me. You know,
right.
How many targets are available? You have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, right? That alone means I wouldn't spend the first round pick on another pass catcher. And then you still have Tyler Boyd.
You're running Irv Smith too, who's very capable of filling in that goal line tight end target guy for them. So
Irv Smith is exactly perfectly fine, which is what you need at tight end if you're the Bengals.
He's better than Hayden Hurst. Perfect. Throw him up.
Yeah, the problem, this team lost both their safeties, the two leading Von Bell and Jesse Bates. They lost them both, though. Like they need a safety. There's no safeties in this draft, so maybe they trade back and just take the best safety.
Absolutely. And then the last team in the first round, New Orleans Saints. I mean, we certainly know they need help on the defensive line too, and like every team at the bottom of the first round too, they need a wide receiver as well.
Yeah, they're. I could see this team just going defense here. I think with Michael Thomas back and Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson back, I think they can get by. They maybe need one more wide receiver, but in the first round, I'm not sure I want to do that right now.
Yeah, their consensus pick looks to be Brian Brees from Clemson, defensive lineman, going to them there. So
that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense.
All right. Well, we did hit the entirety of the first round here. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins did not have their pick; they did forfeit that, but. Just want to say the Better Sports Network app has the best NFL draft experience you're going to find. Join us Thursday and Friday night to follow all the picks, chat with fans, and play our live draft game. Get instant fantasy football and betting analysis as the picks are announced. You'll see all three of us in some form or fashion there for the draft festivities. Answer predictive questions and compete for your chance to win a one-of-one Anthony Richardson augmented reality trading card in his Florida Gators uniform. Pre-draft coverage begins Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, and Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. You'll find all three of us, like I said, on that stream. It's going to be a lot of fun with you guys.
Yeah, should be a great time there. Go download the Better Sports Network app. It's free to do. Get involved in everything that's going on there. Bettercast can help you win that one-of-one Anthony Richardson card. So should be a fun time there for the NFL draft.
Can't wait.
Going to be exciting. Anything else, Coop, before we head on out?
Yeah, that's it, man. Look forward to hanging out with you guys, Moose, Corey Parson, Lisa Ann. We got the whole crew coming out for the draft. So
Britt Flynn, boots on the ground.
Britt Flynn, boots on the ground. It's going to be a blast, baby. So make sure you're tuning in for that.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much for hopping in with us here and talking some ball here.
Anytime.
For John, for Coop, Kevin Tompkins, Toodles, we are out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you.